Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Chelsea and I work in career services with our alumni volunteers. And this is one of many career discovery series events that we've been doing this summer. And so if this is your first one, thank you for joining, but you are also welcome to join any of the others. We have a couple more next week. And they are really just a chance to get to know the basics of an industry and to meet some awesome alumni who work in that field. So these programs are sponsored by the Colgate Professional Networks and Career Services. And the professional networks were created to provide opportunities for alumni to connect with one another and to engage with students who are interested in pursuing related careers, so hence this event. So our plan today is to spend about 35 minutes talking with our alumni about their work and how they got involved. And then we'll spend the last 10 minutes or so on your questions. So please go ahead and submit questions into the chat as they come to mind, and then we'll get to them at the end. David Lovelace will have some questions for Mara and Zach, and hopefully Imani if she's able to join. So we'll let him do those questions, and then we'll get to yours at the end. So without further ado, David, I'll hand it to you. And if Imani does jump in, I will let you know.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Chelsea. Again, my name is David Lovelace. I'm the Associate Director of Career Development in our office. And each of our advisors has industry liaison areas. So all of us work with students regardless of their areas of interest. But we also have industry areas that we dig in a little bit deeper. And so last year, unfortunately, we had one of our advisors move on to a different opportunity. And I had the opportunity to switch into sort of the creative communications area. So I'm currently working with students that are interested in this area. And in disclosure, I actually worked in this area when I first started at Career Services, and then was moved into a different industry area. And now I'm back. So I'm delighted, but I just wanted to be here today. So if there's follow-up or you get motivated about what you hear today and you want to do some follow-up or dig in a little bit more, I could be a resource to talk some things through or discuss next steps. So with that being said, Mara and Zach are here, and I would like to open it up right off the bat to some introductions. So maybe if you could start off by introducing obviously your name, your class year, maybe your major, and maybe quickly if there was any involvement that you were on, but without getting into too much detail, because we'll dig in a little bit more further on into the program.
Sure. My name is Mara Stein. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I just graduated last year, so I'm class of 2019, and I was a history major and film and media minor. And on campus, I was involved with Maroon News, and I was also a tour guide for a few years.
And I'm Zac Coe. Nice to meet all of you. Class of 2014. I was an English major, creative writing emphasis, and I worked at the Writing Center and was the music director at WRCU, and it was a blast.
Great, thank you. And could we just jump right into your current role in the organization? So a little bit of a snippet of what your title is, a little bit, both of you are at organizations that are pretty much universally known. But if you could give us the overview a little bit of, in a little bit more detail, of how you would explain the organization, what you're working with about.
Yeah, so I am an East Coast page at NBCUniversal. The page program is the year-long rotational program for recent college graduates. So I started right after I graduated last May, and I'm now finishing up the program. It's actually a little bit over a year. And the program actually kind of tells you a lot about the company and what it does, because pages rotate through different departments in the company. So you can work in news, you can work in late night, you can help with the corporate functions, you can work, NBC has a really big portfolio. So they own Focus Features, DreamWorks. There's a lot of different opportunities to explore what you'd like to do in the media industry. And the pages really get to see like the full breadth of the NBC portfolio and everything it has to offer.
Great.
And I'm at Viacom. more recently became Viacom CBS. And I'm a copywriter in a department called Velocity, which is basically an advertising department. So the thought being that if I'm an advertiser and I want to advertise on a network owned by Viacom, such as MTV, I can buy ad time and run my own ads, or my team will make a custom ad for you that uses MTV talent and MTV properties and theoretically speaks to MTV's audience a little more specifically. So I've been in that role for about 3 or 4 years.
Great. So at the risk of being a bit remedial here, as far as the question is concerned, I would love to actually go in a little bit more detail about, what is an East Coast page? Yeah, I mean, we hear about it all the time, but what exactly do you do as a page? And then over to Zac, if we could have, what does a copywriter do? Copywriting, you hear that, it's sort of a ubiquitous term, but trying to fill in the blanks, there's sometimes some gaps. So I'd love to dig in a little bit more about what does the role actually mean and what do you do?
So the page program is divided into 2 coasts, the East and the West Coast. So I can quickly mention the West Coast at the end, but the East Coast program is divided into kind of 5 different 3-month rotations. So every 3 months you switch into a new assignment as a page. When you start off, you actually give the tours of NBC studios and you work on the late night shows. So Tonight Show and Late Night with Seth Meyers, to seat the audience. So those first 3 months are called your ambassadorship, and you're kind of just an ambassador for the company. It's very public facing because you're interacting with people you don't know and audiences every day. And then when you complete that ambassadorship, that first 3 months, you go into these different assignment periods, which are sort of like internships, although it's 3 months, so it's longer than a summer internship would be. And for those, that's kind of where that opportunity to explore all these different areas comes in. So for 3 months, you might be working on corporate communications and helping that team. You might have 3 months where you're on the Today Show and you're escorting talent into the studio and making sure they're getting in for their hit times. You might have 3 months where you're working in corporate diversity. So there's a lot of different opportunities. I think there's about 60 different assignments that you can be placed in, and you do get to have a say of, so like, for example, I wanted to explore news a little bit more, so I made sure to kind of put that down when I was speaking with the page team, and I was able to get an assignment for MSNBC on the breaking news team. So you go through those 3 assignment periods wherever you get placed, and then the final period of all of the rotations is called your grad period, and that's what I'm in now. You actually would go back to giving tours if you were in the office. So obviously I'm not doing that, but there are other assignments that come up for the grad pages to do. So right now I'm helping the technical managers in the NBC News control rooms get remote guests on the air. So being a page in general, it's kind of like whatever you want to make the experience for yourself. Some people, they want to go into marketing or social media and they kind of tailor their experience to fit those interests. Other people have no idea what they want to do, and they're open to doing anything and they get placed wherever, and that really helps them figure out where they want to go. But ultimately, there's a lot of different opportunities once you're a page. So no page's experience really looks the same, if that makes sense.
Good. That was helpful. Thank you. Zac, how about you in copywriting?
So yeah, copywriter, candidly not a job that I knew existed when I was majoring in English and all that, but it's essentially a creative writer in the advertising marketing world. So really what I'm doing every day is brainstorming with other writers to come up with what are the actual concepts for these ads, for this content that we're going to be making. What is the joke? What is the connection between the product and our talent and the product and our network? And pitching a bunch of those ideas first to the people within the company, and then eventually to the client. And then if any of those ideas get bought and we move forward, then it's our responsibility to write the scripts and be on set and make sure that the creative actually comes together the way we said it would. So it's pretty fun. It's pretty creative. In the same way that the page program sounds like it's changed a lot in the work from home era. It's been really wild for us too, to suddenly have to figure out how to have shoots without ever being on set together anymore. So that's been a journey, but that's still the job. Yeah.
You know, that you brought up the current situation that we're in. I'd be curious if you could just speak to that really quickly. You know, obviously, Zac, you've had a longer time working at MTV and Viacom, but could you both go into sort of what was the experience prior to COVID, the experience potentially now, and then if you had your crystal ball, maybe what might be different moving forward as far as these roles are concerned hopefully after the pandemic?
A lot of what the pages do, like I mentioned, is very much dependent on there being audiences, and there are no audiences right now. So especially for those pages who are just starting out, where that's what you do and you give tours, none of that is happening right now, which is unfortunate for people who are in that kind of stage of the program. There are also a handful of assignments that had to be cut or drastically changed based on the situation. For example, there's a page who works on the Today Show Plaza. If you guys watch the Today Show, they have the crowds outside every morning, and there's a page who helps pick the people who are going to be highlighted and talk to the anchors. Because there's no plaza, that page at first wasn't doing anything, but then they started doing this virtual plaza. So it's a Zoom call, and they have people every morning, and the page helps coordinate that. So a lot of pages have had their experiences like completely change. Like that one, you know, that person was going to be outside every morning, really early in the morning, and now they're handling a Zoom system. So it's very different. And then for other people who were in more corporate positions, it wasn't a huge difference. Interestingly, the day that everyone started going home, I think it was March 16th or something like that, was also the first day of our assignments, that cycle. So we all started an assignment completely remotely, and I was in affiliate marketing for that time, and it didn't seem like my role changed that much. It was really something that I could do from home. So the short answer is, it just kind of depended on the page. I think the other thing that I definitely miss about being in the office is so much of the program is about the culture and being with other people in the program. And even just getting the opportunity to network in the building, and a lot of that is lost. And so that's sad, and I'm hoping in the future, you know, we'll be able to go back into the building and make those connections again and see each other. But I don't know, it's a huge building, so I don't know when we'll be heading back.
So you would, in your opinion, though, you would think that best case scenario, if we're able to get out of the other side of this pandemic, that NBC would probably try to go back to some sort of a model that they had prior to the outbreak, and create that culture again, and have very much on-site interactions and engagements and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think just because, you know, similar to Zac, like there's so much production involved in the building, and so I think, you know, audiences and tours are probably going to be some of the last things to come back, just because you can put on a show without them, and the tours are just like financially not necessary for the company. But I think that I think eventually we'll get there. And especially culturally, you know, they're still going to hire a group of pages. They're not going to hire any fewer pages than they would have, and those pages will get the chance to connect with each other.
Well, that's encouraging. All right. How about you, Zac?
Yeah, I mean, it's been certainly a a wild time. I think, before it was so much collaboration hinged on being together in the workplace. And also, yeah, staging productions was really the end goal of every project was, let's get to a point where we can produce this. So when we sort of, flipped the switch to go remote, it was a pretty serious scramble to figure out, there are advertisers that we already promised creative to. How are we gonna give them something? And then also, how are we going to move forward? And what really is the place for like advertising right now? I think we definitely stepped back for a long time, and then gradually came to a place where some advertisers are interested in, moving forward and doing something entertaining. I think people got really fatigued really quickly with sort of from the heart ads with moody piano beds that start with "in these unprecedented times." I think there are only so many of those you can see, especially from like fast food companies and stuff like that. But it's been an interesting adjustment, because it's been probably harder for our production team than for our writers, where they have to now figure out, we have talent in LA that nobody can fly to. We have writers in New York, and we have a client that has to be aware of everything that's going on. So in the past 2 weeks, I've done maybe 4 or 5 Zoom shoots, which are really surreal. And basically there are 2 separate Zoom rooms, one with the client and one with the creatives, sort of creating the illusion of what in the previous world was called a video village. And like last night I did a shoot where we had 2 reality TV stars completely shoot themselves. We mailed them a camera, and we mailed them a new iPhone, and we mailed them a few ring lights and a bunch of props and a bunch of fast food, and we wrote them a script, and we just kind of walked them through it. And I think it's been, some talent is really into it and really down to goof around and get their hands dirty, and you kind of have to read every situation differently. But in terms of moving forward, I think, everybody wants to go back to shooting in person and collaborating in person, but I think we also have learned some valuable lessons about, we can collaborate pretty well from a distance. It opens up maybe opportunities to work with creatives in other cities and do it over Zoom. And now that's kind of a new creative language that everybody's figured out. So I think I see us going back to the way it was before, but also maybe with some new openness to kind of collaborating, digitally.
Great. Zac, earlier today, you sort of outed yourself by saying you didn't even know what a copywriter was early on in the process. So I'd be curious to hear from both of you. At what point did your lane become apparent? When did you know that you wanted to be a page, or when did you know you wanted to be a copywriter, and how did you get there? Mara, could you maybe start there?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when I went into Colgate, I was going to be a psych major, and I took neuroscience, and I was like maybe gonna look into medical school. And I took a couple classes in the film and media studies curriculum that I really liked. And being a history major too, like I always knew I liked writing and researching. And I feel like the more that I took some of my classes and when I started getting involved with the Maroon News, it just became apparent to me that this was what I was happiest doing, was having a role in media compared to science. But there wasn't any one moment that I felt like I definitely knew what I wanted to do. And I feel like even now I don't know 100% what I want to do. Something I probably should have mentioned earlier is that the PAGE program is designed for people who don't know what they want to do. So when you go into it, the idea is that you're there to explore different parts of the company and learn about what it is that you want to do. So I feel like I still haven't narrowed down exactly where I want to be, but taking those classes and getting involved on campus really helped me better identify the direction I wanted to go.
Great, thanks. Zach, how about you?
Yeah, I had a very similar experience where I thought I was going to be a psych major, and then I don't know if there are any psych majors on this call, but I remember making it to the hard part of Psych 101 and being like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But you know, being an English major and also working at the writing center, it became clear to me over time that I was really interested in not only kind of prose writing, but also like writing and editing. So I sort of started out of college with 2 back-to-back editorial assistant positions, one at a music magazine called CMJ, and then the next happened to be at Viacom. And it wasn't until I landed there as sort of a hybrid, you know, creative assistant, but also administrative assistant, just kind of doing the calendars and stuff like that. It wasn't until I got there that I met some other writers and learned about kind of the path that was available, and kind of picked up the skills from there. But I always, you know, I grew up a musician and stuff like that. So being in media kind of sounded appealing, but I just didn't know how that was going to be possible until much later.
Great. So, you know, with that being said, both of these areas seem extremely interesting as far as jobs and job functions. I would imagine that they're very, very competitive. So can you talk a little bit about the process of getting the opportunity? How'd you get your foot in the door? How did you get selected, do you think?
I did have some media internships throughout college that I think really helped. Even though, like I said, the program is for people who don't know what they want to do, they do want to see that you have some interest in media and that you've demonstrated that, whether it's in a club on campus or an internship. I interned the summer after my sophomore year at this startup political talk show. And I did not think I was a politics person or anything like that, but it was the only internship I got, basically. And I really, really liked it. And then after that, I did intern at NBC. I was at WNBC, which is the local New York station, on the investigative reporting team. And I loved that experience. So I think having those 2 experiences in combination with what I was doing at Colgate really helped me go through the application stage. But that's also not to say that you need to have, like, just because Zach and I both happen to intern at the companies that we work for now doesn't mean that you need to have this incredible, like, internship at a really known company to get hired and do well. I think of my cohort of the pages who basically were hired at the same time as me, there's 23 of us, and I think only 4 or 5 of us interned at NBC. So it's not so much about the name recognition, it's about the experience that you can get. And I think had I not gone to that little political talk show that no one knows what it is, like, I would never have developed my interest, and I wouldn't have good experience with my resume to get the position afterward.
Yeah, I think that all sounds about right. The first job I had out of college was I actually got through. I don't know if any of you are involved with the radio station, but when when we used to submit charts of what was played on the air, we would submit them to CMJ. And a lot of times I was doing that, submitting and having those conversations. So I knew somebody there, and that's how I sort of transitioned to be an editorial assistant there out of college. But after that, it was just about networking, which I imagine is frustrating to hear. But it was, I eventually was connected with somebody who worked in sales at Viacom, and he introduced me to somebody else who he heard maybe they were going to have a new assistant role on the team. And it took a long time. Probably the whole process from my first interview was probably in October, November, and then it didn't really happen until March or April of the following year. So it is a little bit luck of the draw, but it's really just about, making those introductions and having those conversations.
And Mara, what was your timeline for your hiring process between applying and then interviewing, and what did those interviews look like?
The good thing about applying to an organized program is that they have like clear dates that the application process follows. And so I feel like typically in media, when positions come out, they want to hire you for as soon as possible, basically. But I was able to go through this process while I was in school and start as soon as I was done with school. So I think they put out the applications in January, to begin in May. And I had a virtual interview in February. And I don't know if you guys have done this, but it was like a one-on-one, or not a one-on-one. It's a one-on computer. So you're just recording yourself answering questions. And it's a preset system. I did that in February, and then I didn't hear anything until March. And then in March, I heard that I was going to the final interview, which wasn't until April. But then after the final interview, I found out that I got in the next day. And then I had some time to graduate. And then I started the program a week after graduating. But the program also hires 4 times a year. So if you don't want to start right after you graduate, that you can start, it's usually August, November, February, and May when they start new groups of people. Honestly, don't write that down, because I think it's all going to change now. They had to skip. So like the people who were supposed to be hired in May still haven't been hired yet. So I think they're going to become like the September, and then it's going to go from there. But they hire every 4 months or every 3 months.
Great, thank you. You both have mentioned throughout some of your answers, some of your involvement on campus. You've heard Writing Center, radio station, Maroon News. How about the liberal arts just in general, or some of the classes? What are some of the skills or the qualities or additional things that you got from Colgate that maybe helped you not only get to your position now, but maybe even helps you succeed in your role? Either one could start on that one if you need to noodle on it for a minute.
I feel like we're in a rhythm where you're going first.
I knew that one might take some reflection though. So I wanted to give you a moment.
So I think that, and I kind of mentioned this before, being a history major, like we would get readings that were over 100 pages per class, and like I didn't say this, but like you can't read 100 pages for a single class. And so I think I just got used to and good at going through a huge document or a huge amount of reading and finding what's important. And I feel like that skill is something that I've consistently relied on and spoken about in interviews. That's been really transferable to my experiences. For one of my assignments, I mentioned this before, I was on the breaking news team for MSNBC, and all day I watched Fox News and Fox Business News and any speaking engagement or presser that Trump or Pence was doing. And so I was consuming a lot of content, and I had to determine what we actually wanted to know from that hours and hours of footage. And I was, logging as I was watching everything and making, I think having the skills of reading and finding what's important really helped me when I had to watch and listen to a lot and determine what actually was the key and what was the news. And that's something I still carry through now to this day. And it's also something I think liberal arts in general, something I've spoken a lot about in interviews, because I know that, you know, a lot of people who are your age are in communications programs at other schools who are interested in doing the same careers as you. And I've always tried to use my liberal arts education as a selling point. So instead of saying like, oh, well, I didn't have communications at my school, or like other people are more qualified and had more specialized education, like show that you're actually interested in learning a lot, and your liberal arts education has allowed you to explore a lot. And I think showing that you have an interest in learning is really beneficial, and employers really like to hear that.
Yes, it's something that I meant to mention earlier. As you said, you know, the way that pages, I imagine, have such a variety of backgrounds academically. I've worked with so many writers in my industry who all have, you know, some maybe actually went to advertising school, some like me were English majors, some were journalism majors, and some were political science majors or history majors, and it's kind of all over the map. But I think that what it all kind of has in common is that you learn to, in a liberal arts universe, you kind of learn to write persuasively about stuff that maybe isn't your area of expertise, about you're always adopting voices that are new to you. And that's something that I found really useful, where I have to kind of juggle, this is the voice of the network, but this is also the voice of the client, and this is the voice of the show, and all that. And also that's something that the Writing Center was a big factor there too, just because you'd be editing a paper for somebody who, you know, is a bio major and this is their thesis, and you're like, I haven't taken bio since I was in high school, but we're going to get through this, you know. And that just kind of being able to be convincing and adopt voices like that, I think is a major skill no matter where you are in the liberal arts world.
Terrific. Thank you. Chelsea, I'm keeping an eye on the clock here, and I want to make sure that we designate some time for students to ask questions.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to take over, and if there's not questions, I of course have additional questions I could ask, but I
There
want to
are
open
not.
it up to the floor.
Yeah, there aren't any questions in the chat, but I would encourage you all, you can unmute yourself and ask questions, or put them in the chat. Either way, give you a minute to think on it.
Hello, how's it going? First, I just want to thank you guys for actually finding the time to talk to all of us about your, you know, career choices and your, you know, your choice of, you know, employment after college. If I haven't introduced myself, I'm Decorian Sims, a rising junior at Colgate. I'm a sociology and film and media double major. And currently I'm interning at HBO Max this summer. So it's like really interesting hearing your perspectives on Viacom. Before, you know, I just finished, I just wanted to ask, what is something that you wish you had known going into your job out of college that you had to learn from your experience in your workspace or industry?
What do you think? That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. Like, I feel like I'm still a student. I think I wish I would have known that, like, I think that I really, even though, like, despite the advice I just gave, I was very intimidated by the fact that I was going to be with all these communication majors in the program, and that I was going to be in a program with a lot of different people, and that there was going to be some sense of competition among us. And I think I've been, like, very pleasantly surprised at how positive the culture's been. And I've just had to, like, kind of grow my own confidence a little bit more. Like, I wish I had told myself to not doubt myself and my experiences so much, because, like, I deserved to be in the program and I have done well in it. And I think had I had maybe a little more confidence about that earlier on, maybe I would have excelled earlier in certain assignments, or done a better job networking. You all go to Colgate, like, you're smart people. That is like, that alone, you know, is enough. And you guys are like taking time out of your summer afternoon to come listen to this. Like, don't question your own ability and drive to do well, and show that to an interviewer. I think had I had that little extra confidence in myself, I maybe would have done better.
Yeah, to that point, I think exactly as you said, yeah, Colgate is already on the resume for all you guys. And I think I didn't really know that, you know, there isn't such a one-to-one correlation between what you study and what you end up doing. And also, you can explore a little more academically because your entire course list is not something that you really are going to advertise for the rest of your life. So I think I wish I had known that you don't have to be quite as restrictive in terms of like, I'm in this world and that's where I'm staying. And also, once you get out, you know, if you studied one thing, it's still okay, I think, to say that was interesting, but I'm also interested in this totally other separate field. And because I went to Colgate and because I studied liberal arts, it's not out of the question for me.
Good question, Decorian. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Ali Campana. I'm a rising senior. I'm majoring in film and media studies and minoring in political science. This is a question for Mara. I want to know about like the difference between the West Coast page program and the East Coast page program.
Yes, apologies, because I definitely said I was gonna go over that. So the West Coast program is very similar in that you rotate through different assignments. There's kind of two key differences. The first is that they don't do the tours and the audience stuff, because all our late night shows are based out of the East Coast, and the studio tour as a result is also based out of the East Coast. So it's just not something they do. They do like I think they sometimes give tours of the Universal lot, and they like drive golf carts and stuff. But more professionally, all of their assignments are going to be more toward the film side. So the Universal lot is out there, Focus Features, DreamWorks, all of those parts of the NBCU umbrella are out there, whereas news, sports, Telemundo, late night, that's all on the East Coast. So I feel like if you're debating which coast to do, like if you're interested in film, the West Coast is definitely the place to go. You're really not going to have much opportunity to explore film on the East Coast. And again, obviously you don't need to know exactly what you want to do, but generally film is all on the West Coast, and the East Coast assignments, I think you just have more of an opportunity to touch a lot of different things, because more just happens to be run out of the East Coast. And 30 Rock is kind of like the headquarters. I also just like, I'm biased, but I just think the East Coast, like, you get to do more, and you're in 30 Rock and it's so cool and fun, and I just feel like there's more opportunities, whereas the West Coast, you probably should have a better sense of what you want to do, and that what you want to do should be film.
Good question, Ali. We have time for maybe one more. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Shiv. Sorry, my camera's not working, but I was just wondering, sorry, I was a little late to the meeting, so this is actually a pretty quick question. This program you're talking about, you did it after you graduated from Colgate?
Yes, I started right after I graduated, and I'm still in it.
Cool, thank you.
Chelsea, do we have time for one more? Shiv, you were right. That was a quick question.
Does anyone have anything else?
Yeah, Meg?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Does this work?
Oh, yep.
Okay, so Mara, you talked about how you're still deciding between like what you exactly want to do. So I was wondering what different careers in media production have you considered and like what has drawn you towards them or away from them?
That's a good question. I think so. Having had the experience at the political talk show and on the I team for WNBC, I went into the program thinking I wanted to do news, but I had never had like very fast-paced anything in news, and I feel like that's when I think of news, I think of like breaking news, like you have 2 minutes to get a story onto the air, that kind of thing. But like the Maroon news is like once a week and it's print, and you know the investigative pieces were much longer term. So going into the program, I wanted to get that faster pace experience. But then my very first assignment was in standards and practices, which is on the business side, and it's like totally different from news production. It's very slow paced, like they review everything and it's very detail oriented. And having done that rotation, like I thought that maybe I wanted to do standards when I graduated, just because I liked the detailed focus of it. Like you have to find I don't know, like there's a website in a single frame of a TV show and we can't have that website in there. Or this person said the F word under their breath at like 30 seconds into this show while someone else is talking over them. Things like that. I liked the hunt to find things. And so I was pretty happy with that. And I thought that the PAGE program had allowed me to like learn about this department I had no idea about. But when I did finally get that taste of that faster paced news production environment, I like kind of went back to my interest in news, and that's sort of what I'm looking forward to now.
Great. So I'm just looking at the time here. I really appreciate all of you jumping in and for Mara and Zac for joining us. So just want to do some quick wrap up. The alumni here are on the Colgate link, which is a virtual community just for Colgate alumni and students to connect about things just like we were just talking about. So we recommend using the link to follow up with these, with both Mara and Zac. If you have questions about getting into that system, you can feel free to reach out to David or myself, but we will also be sending a follow-up likely the beginning of next week with the recording of this session, along with instructions on the Colgate link and some next steps. So if there aren't any other questions, I think we are all set for the day, and just want to send our thank you to Mara and Zac again. And thank you all for coming.
We have 1 second. I see Jamie raised her hand.
Oh, okay.
Hi, sorry, I just wanted to ask a question for Zac. I'm Jamie. I am a rising junior, and I'm a music major and a sociology minor. And I read that you're a touring musician, and I just wanted to ask you whether you considered going into a different area in the music industry, or you wish you had explored a little more in that area, or live music, because I'm currently interning with a company that focuses on live music, and so I was just wondering your thoughts.
Yeah, I think music has always been a huge part of my life. It sounds like it's a big part of yours as well. And I interviewed, I think, at some record labels out of college, but was kind of attracted to this world for whatever reason. But I also, a lot of what's fun about being in a creative department is that almost everybody you talk to has sort of a surprise side hustle or side passion. And a lot of them, are musicians or comedians or artists or, what have you. So it's definitely stayed a big part of my life. And yeah, I think the kind of role that I have, for example, I think those roles do exist and increasingly exist more at like record labels, for example, where there's more pressure to, you know, maintain a brand identity and stuff like that. So I think more and more those worlds are colliding a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that helps at all.
No, that did. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you all so much. I think that will wrap it up for the day, and please be in touch if you have any questions. Thank you, Mara and Zac.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.